All right, Mike, who you got for your special guest?
Great guest this week, Clint Smith. Clint, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Clint Smith is the president and director of Thunder Ranch, one of the nation's premier firearms training facilities for civilians and law enforcement. Clint's a Marine Corps combat veteran, a former police officer, during which he served as the head of firearms training, as well as a SWAT member and precision rifleman. Clint is a contributor to American Handgunner, American Cop, Guns, and SWAT magazines, and has been published in many articles nationally and internationally. He works for Thunder Ranch, which was formed in 1993. It opened to show not only innovative training, but numerous range designs and functions of a type not seen before in one facility. And in 2004, Thunder Ranch was successfully moved to Oregon. You, sir, are a legend at the apex of your industry, and we appreciate you so much for coming on, Clint.
I'm not sure about the legend thing, but I might be at apex, but thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. Well, I got to tell you, so I'm going to be honest right off the top. When researching for this for the interview here, I came across a video of you speaking to, I believe you were speaking to a class of students, and you said that to them something along the lines of, hey, I don't care what you like for lunch. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to be friendly. I want to know if your rifle's zeroed. I want to know that you can load your rifle. And I thought to myself, I'd be perfectly frank, I thought, wow, what a jerk. And I turned it off. And then I thought about it for about a day. Clint, it kind of kept ringing in my head. And I went back and watched it again, and I want you to know how much I really, truly appreciate how seriously you take your job and the responsibility to train people to defend their life. And I really realized after thinking about it and watching that video again, that's the point you were trying to get across, and I think you did it effectively and sincerely, and I truly appreciate that.
Well, you're not the first person to say that, but I have been known to be as smooth as a broken glass bottle. I have a job to do, and like you said, sometimes people are taken back because most people who are reasonably mature adults have never really had anyone kind of, for lack of better terminology, get in their face before. But it's very simple. I need for people to understand one thing. The school is not about shooting. The school is about thinking. But if you have to shoot, it has to be done, and you have to be able to do it right now, and there won't be a lot of time to, like you said, zero your rifle. Where did I put that magazine? So, probably one of the best tools we can have in our house is a fire extinguisher, in a manner of speaking. But at the same time, if you ever do need the firearm, there won't be a lot of time to, hey, can I review that? So it has a tendency to be a little bit edgy once in a while, especially for people who are not used to it. But I have a job. I know what my job is. What we do is very serious. I try to have a reasonably good time at it. But like I said, I'm not, marketing people would all have a cardiac arrest right now. I'm not actually looking for new best friends. I'm looking for people to survive whatever encounter they may have.
I think that's fantastic, and I think that that's important, and I think that people like myself who work hard for preserving and restoring Second Amendment rights, particularly here in California, and activists who work hard on their free time to do the same thing. I think it's a lesson learned. I think that we do need to take it that seriously because it is a civil right, and it really is the difference between life and death. But what led you to that mindset when you started, especially teaching civilians? What led you to, what led you to that mindset when teaching civilians? I guess is the question.
I think that mine is a longer process. Without being disrespectful, I've basically been using firearms for a living and/or, shall we say, because it was my job for 52 years. So I can't just say that one thing led to that. I would say that it's a series of things. The idea that you would have military experience, especially in my time frame, then you realize that what it's like to have the civilian population under duress. If you're not there, someone's not going to take care of them. Then being in law enforcement, they they have kind of like stuff today where people kind of go, well, it could be civil unrest. I started as a baby cop in 1970. I mean, we had the SLA, that was down in your country. We had the SDS. A lot of that stuff. There were a lot of different organizations, and rightly so. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's why they call it America. But, you can't shoot up courthouses, and there's a system. You may not like it, but there is a system, so you have to work with inside the system. And I think my idea was to bring that to people, to sort of take away the private sector, to take away that sort of flippant attitude, like, hey, apply the gun for my cold bed. Yeah, I got it. If he breaks my house, I can shoot him. Not necessarily. In other words, there was a lot of misnomers where people just had sort of like, mall commando kind of attitudes about stuff. And I kind of tell people, you screw around with this, you can go to jail for the rest of your life. And that's if you survive the court thing. I mean, shooting is an issue. We know it. But the issue is going to be the legal ramifications. And then you already know, based on geographics, for example, you have a certain thing that I might be able to do in San Diego County. That was one response, where if I did the same thing where I live in Southern Oregon, I might get a different response from law enforcement, especially where I'm in a much more rural area where we're a lot more inclined to sort of take care of ourselves, without having to, I can dial 911, but I don't know that anything happens. But I don't mean it ugly. I just mean we're a long ways from anything.
So you've taught thousands of students over decades, pistol, rifle, shotgun. What are we all doing right, and what are we all doing wrong?
I think we're doing right that we should understand that as far as the Second Amendment, our ability to own a firearm means we're never subjected to the whims of other people without our permission. That's a good thing. What we might be doing wrong is we might be over-engineering what the problem is, and then we might be over-engineering what the solution is. I would never be a guy to turn down spare ammo or spare magazines, but I don't think that everybody necessarily, needs an RPG to protect their house. It's okay if you own one. I don't care. I mean, I got the Second Amendment, but shooting them in a neighborhood might be a little bit rowdy. You know what I mean? So their balance, I think, is to get people to grasp that possession of a firearm does not equate to competency. And people go, well, you would be inclined to say that because you do training. And you, not being ugly, but I think y'all, as I said in Texas, asked me to be on the show. I didn't call you and ask to be on the show. In other words, I'm not looking for a job. I have a job. I'm employed, even in these trying times. But people go, well, of course you're pro-training because you train. Well, don't get training from me. Get training from somebody. Get training from somebody that addresses the issue that exists for you. And I'm not being ugly. I know a lot of them. I've dealt with them over decades. I've trained them. But you don't necessarily need a Navy SEAL, to teach you how to defend yourself if you're a housewife with 3 kids. But you might need to have basic good gun handling skills and have a reasonable idea of what your response would be if you ever had an issue.
What about technically? Is there something that gun owners are technically generally not doing right, or technically generally doing well? Is there, what I mean? Is there something that maybe gets practiced too much and something else that gets ignored?
No, I think that there's a lot of gaming, and by that I mean that people equate a 3-gun competition to home defense. And so no one gets excited about this. This is what I would suggest. If you ever get an opportunity, anyone who's listening, and you can go and watch shooting, some of the best shooters that have ever come to America have come out of Southern California. You guys know that, the Southwest Pistol League. I mean, that goes back way, way, way back. So there's a lot of competency in that area. I mean, but I don't know. And again, I say this because I was a cop, my dad was a cop, my brother was a cop, my uncle was a cop, so I can't get in any trouble. You don't necessarily need a cop to teach you how to defend yourself, because there's a lot of cops, for example, that don't necessarily shoot that well. You know what I'm saying? And there are a lot of people in the military that don't shoot that well. And there are damn sure a lot of gun owners that don't shoot that well. But I think the problem is maybe overstated if you look, I always tell people, don't take my word for it. Go on a computer and just research shootings, and look at the distance to the target. The actual problem of marksmanship is generally not that difficult in a fight. It's when you have a heart rate of 230 and you have a wet spot in your underwear and you're trying to back up and it's dark and you're moving and the target's moving and your dog is barking and your kids are crying, okay, and or in the case of law enforcement, because people are, well, they don't shoot very good. Well, here's a thought. Maybe you get what you pay for. Maybe instead of complaining about how well they shoot, maybe we should put more money into, training for them so that they might be better. We spend a lot of money on airplanes to drop bombs, so to speak, so there's some training involved in that.
Hey, Clint. Clint, we're going to have to pay a few bills. Let me put you on hold just for a second, and then we'll bring you back because this is very interesting, and we're on Facebook Live, and we're getting all kinds of responses. And by the way, I'll bet you any amount of money how Michael got a little offended by your harshness. That means he wasn't in the military. People that were in the military totally understand that mentality, don't we?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. We'll be right back, folks. This is Gun Sports Radio, FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
This is FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
Thank you very much. Hey, folks, have you ever been to A.O. Sword Firearms in El Cajon? Yes, they're open, and they've got the widest selection of guns in San Diego County, with over 600 unique guns in stock, including hundreds of used guns. Go see their full-service, experienced gunsmith. They can do everything from mild repairs to full custom firearms. A.O. Sword Firearms store located on 929 East Main Street in the city of El Cajon. Go to their website at aosword.com or just give them a call at 619-749-4867. Build, buy, or repair. A.O. Sword Firearm is your go-to place for all things firearms. That's aosword.com or give them a call at 619-749-4867. All right, hey, this segment is brought to you by the law office of John Dillon. John Dillon, if you have any legal issues that involve anything gun-related, give John a call. The red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, storage. If the word gun is in your question, John is the guy that can give you the answer. That's John Dillon at 760-431-9501. All right, we're going to go back to Clint Smith, President and Director of Thunder Ranch in the lovely state of Oregon. Are you there, Clint?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
So, Clint, my opinion, and I've said it for years, is that the gun community makes mountains out of molehills. And what I mean by that is they argue over 45 versus 9mm, or ARs versus AKs, or Glocks versus 1911, or, that sort of thing. My thought is get a gun, learn it, and practice with it often. Stop spending so much time on these nerdy arguments. Why am I right and why am I wrong?
Well, one, you're not wrong. I can't think of any particular caliber that I would want to get shot with, and haven't been shot before. I can say that. I think that I would rather have someone beside me with a 9mm that was hitting everything they were shooting at than someone beside me with a 44 Magnum that was missing everything. So I think that, like I said, it's industry-wise, I'm sort of, you mentioned earlier, a legend. I think the industry would consider me to be a pain in the arse because I kind of go, okay, if you go to the SHOT Show, it's an amazing show, but 98% of all the stuff in that building will never be used in a fight in the next 2 years. Or 5 years. In other words, I get it. It's a marketing thing. People want to sell things. People always want to upgrade. Remember when we used to have black wall tires, then we needed white walls, and then, now we got to where gas was expensive, so we all had to get rid of our muscle cars, and now they're bringing back a Hellcat. In other words, always somebody bigger, faster, stronger, more. I guess it's America. Isn't that awesome?
It is. It is awesome, and amen to that. It just seems to me, oh my God, and maybe it is about marketing, and part of me doesn't really fight it and isn't vocal about it because, hey, at least they're talking about guns. At least, you know what I mean? At least the discussion's happening. But, oh, man, people get wrapped around the axle so easily with some of these little, minute differences.
Well, for example, people will be judgmental on me, just a passing comment. One time a guy just sent a thing and, he goes, hey, Clint, you're old. What you teach is old, and you shoot a 1911, that's old. And so I did like you did. I waited for a day or two and thought about what was said, and then I sent a note back and go, do you ever think there's a reason that I'm this old?
Good for you.
The news is the people go like, well, you like 1911s. You can never find in writing anywhere where I said I like 1911s and everyone should own one. You cannot find that anywhere. If most people call me out of the blue and they just go, hey, I'm a new gun owner, I want to buy a gun, I understand they're, what do you think? And I go, probably a Glock 19, probably.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it can't have a high-capacity magazine because I'm in California. Not my problem. I don't live in California. You're trying to get me to answer questions to your problems when your problem is not my problem. If you only can have 10 rounds in your magazine, then maybe you should practice loading.
So along those lines, what's something that you used to teach and either you no longer teach or you've changed it due to advancements with technology or just experience? What's something that maybe 10, 20 years ago you taught, but now you've changed it or eliminated it? And basically, and that's kind of a specific question, but broader, it's what's changed in the gun industry in the last 20 years? Is there something, in particular that you've had to modify or something that used to be written in stone, but now it's totally changed?
Something that was always as part of a doctrine, because you researched it enough to know that I started teaching in a gun site in 1980, like in Arizona. And so, I started my own school in 83, so 83, 93, and then Thunder Ranch in 94. So to get to your question, the one thing that I tell people, I mention it, but I tell them in the physical lecture, draw a line through it, is a tactical load. Personally, I think that for most people, they should shoot, if they have to, until they win or until the gun goes empty. When the gun goes empty, learn how to reload the gun. And it doesn't matter whether it's a 5-shot Chief or a 10-shot Glock. So tactical loads would be something that I would say that I have eliminated.
Explain to people what a tactical load is.
A tactical load in theory is supposed to save or conserve ammunition, and I understand that. And if I was in the military and I was teaching strictly military people, I might teach them a tactical load. In other words, if they're firing and they're making closure on a building and they're trying to put final protective fire, in other words, we need to shoot a lot of this guy to keep them down, then I might reload and bring a magazine up to capacity before I go into this building. That would make sense. So a tactical load was supposed to save or conserve ammo. You took a partially depleted magazine out of the gun and put a fully loaded magazine back in the gun, duly loaded. But the problem with it is, again, we get into the heart rate of 230, 240, 250, slippery hands. I got blood on my hands. Your fault, my fault, nobody's fault. Now the next thing you know, I'm juggling a bag of cats. And so I think you're better to just shoot the gun. It goes empty. Empty gun's not bad luck. It's only what happens after the gun goes empty. And if I practice, I push the button, old mag comes out, or cylinders, charge holes empties, speed loader goes in, magazine goes back in, and the gun's back in the fight. We can come up with all kinds of statistics. The average fight is this long, the average fight is this, and that. They're not average. There's no fight that's average. Whatever idiot thought that a fight was average, okay? Now, you can have statistics, but that doesn't mean that you and I are going to fit inside that bubble.
I've seen one of the things I saw were a couple of statements and videos and where you talked about using an AR for, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of condensing and paraphrasing, so I don't mean to put words in your mouth or anything, but basically the idea of using an AR for home defense, I think it's fantastic. And I think an AR is a fantastic home defense platform or firearm. It seems like for years that idea has kind of been poo-pooed, but it seems to be making a comeback. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it might, to some people, appear to be coming back again, but for a lot of us, it was always been that way. AR is a solid platform. It has a reasonably good magazine capacity. Even in California, it has 10 rounds. That means less manipulation. Usually those platforms are set up well to mount a light on. So in other words, I can have a weapons-mounted light, and or my personal opinion is to have two, okay, so that I can do that. Most 223 rounds, either hollow points or soft points, if they're shot to the same mediums, like sheetrock walls, 2x4s, all that, they'll go through less walls than a 9mm. And it's simple. People go, well, how can that be? Because the velocity is the thing that makes the 223 work if they hit someone, but it also is what makes it come apart. So think of it like a Corvette. It's going through. Your 9mm is a semi-hauling steel. They're doing two different things. And you already know now, and I'll just say this so no one gets axle wrapped, as you put it. You can't put 223 SS-109 green tips, which are core penetrators, for lack of better terminology, armor piercing, which I don't even think you can have in California, but you get the point. I don't want to shoot that inside. And if I lived in a mobile home park, I'd need to be more consistent or considerate of what I was doing. I do want to say one thing here because this always comes up. Somebody goes, yeah, ARs are stupid. I use a shotgun. Really? Okay, well, here you go, Lugnut. For everybody who thinks a shotgun's cool, remember that a shotgun inside your house is nothing more than a rifle because the pattern hasn't expanded enough, okay, to make it any different. Now, if you hit somebody with a loaded bird shot, at 5 yards, yes, you're really going to jack them up. But if you still got to manipulate the gun. Shotguns have a limited amount of ammunition capacity, and they literally from 0 to 10 yards are a rifle because the pattern's not going to be any bigger. It's not like, in the cowboy movies where you pull the trigger and it covers the whole side of the building. So shotguns are great and awesome, but if you shoot a shotgun and or a revolver, part of your big time criteria, 50% of the time should be loading the gun.
So I made the point not too long ago, actually, and a couple people made the point on the air, and a couple people reached out to me, and basically most people train with a pistol to put two shots on target, basically saying that, hey, a pistol is not as strong as a rifle. Or is not the strongest projectile, not the strongest firearm. It's portable, that's why we use it, but it's not, the most powerful. So therefore, I'm not going to use a shotgun. I'm going to always, for home defense, I'm going to use a pistol. My Glock holds 15 rounds. A shotgun holds 6 or 7, typically. But my point was, well, hey, if you're training that you have to pull the trigger twice to stop somebody, then you don't have 15 rounds or 16, plus one in the chamber. You have 8. With a shotgun, you have, 6, 7, 8 that you don't have, that have far more, for lack of a better term, stopping power. Is what I'm saying, does that make sense? Am I on the right track? Am I totally off? Or what's your opinion on that?
Here's my opinion. I won't say you're right or I won't say you're wrong, but I think that it's a bad idea to shoot a drill. In other words, when people shoot historically 2 shots or what was called a double tap or whatever fancy thing is vogue now, the problem with that is if you shoot twice and mentally you've trained that way and unplug your head, because I did my drill and the person that you shot is not down. I mean, I can go on eBay and buy level 2 body armor, which will stop every handgun you own except for 5.7. Okay, so I don't think they should shoot drills. I think they should shoot responses. The threat that we're talking about, if we're being honest, okay, is basically a humanoid configuration. It has 3 places of structural armor: the pelvis, the center, and the head. Okay, and the deal with it is when you train, you should train to attack all 3 zones, either as they're available or as they become available. In other words, don't just run a drill. Draw fire too. When we talked about statistics earlier, right? There's documented cases of cops drawing, firing 2 rounds, putting the gun back in the holster. The fight's not over. They draw the gun, shoot 2 more, put it back in the holster. And all you got to do is research it. Don't take my word for it. So I wouldn't shoot a drill. I would shoot a series of responses, one layered over the other. That's how I would train. And I didn't say, a 25-round magazine, so to speak. That's not. I'm saying shoot until the threat stops doing what you started doing. And I could do that. If you and I were together, I would go, okay, great. I'm going to have you shoot the center of the target because it's the biggest thing until I tell you otherwise. And if you're going center, and I go pelvis, okay, now you change the drill. In other words, I've changed it for you. So it's, I wouldn't do that 2-round drill any more than I would do 2 in the chest and 1 in the face as standard drill. I wouldn't do that. Well, let's be blunt. If you're drawing a pistol is a tool of convenience. It's not a tool of effectiveness. Again, research it. 80% of all people shot by handguns, even multiple times, survive. I don't care if they live or die. I just don't want them to stab me.
And I think that's fantastic advice. I really appreciate you coming on. I just wanted to read one more thing. This is a quote by someone named Heidi Smith, who also helps you run Thunder Ranch. Our primary concern is that people who come to Thunder Ranch leave with a peace of mind in their heart and head. We strongly hope that they never have to use any of the skills or things learned here for the defense of themselves or their family. But if they do, we want this knowledge to be used confidently and with great vigor. The only goal is to win. Heidi, I think that was beautifully put. Clint, thank you so much for coming on. How do people find you?
They could just go thunderranchinc.com if they have an inclination. And thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Clint.
All right, Clint, thank you a lot, and thank you for your service. We're going to take a quick break.
Without someone doing something about it, it's not going to get any better.